paranormal. It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations, all in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, boys and ghouls. I am Dan Terry, your ghost host with the most haunted. And speaking of most haunted, wait till you get a load of this guest. Lynn Monet is a world-renowned author. She's wrote several books, including The Omnipresent. I believe there's 2 in that series. And one about the Colors of Heaven, which is about death and what happens on the other side. We were just chatting about it before the show, and I want to kind of give you a little idea of what we're talking about, and then I'm going to bring her back soon, and hopefully she'll come back and talk about that some more, because what we talked about is incredible. She's been an empath since she was a child. She has spirituality-themed writing. She actually was a Palm Beach Runway Model at the beginning of her career. She holds degrees in biological studies, a certified, and help me out with the word, Death Doula, and I will ask her what that is. I have no idea. And she's published the 6 books now, and she's got a 3rd and 4th Omnipresent book actually coming out. Our 4th one should be out this year. She's been on Coast to Coast AM. She's been on Beyond Belief with George Noory, so she's hitting the big host. Why she come on my show, we'll never know. And she's got her own show you may be interested in. It's called the Lynn Monet Show on the Ground Zero Plus channel. And we'll tell you more about how to find her on that. But let's just get right onto it and bring Lynn Monet onto the show.
Hi, Dan.
Lynn, I was just so glad you agreed to come on here, because the stories you have, especially after we talked a little while ago, it's got me looking over my shoulder, and I don't generally do that.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me on. I really was looking forward to this, so I'm glad to be here today. And thank you for the wonderful introduction.
Well,
so, yeah.
It looks to me like you earned it. You was a nurse for what, 30-some years?
Actually 42 years. I say 30 years because I don't want anybody to think I'm old, but but actually I'm going to be 63 May 17th. So yeah, I am that old, but I've just recently retired as a nurse.
Well, I'll hit 63 in September, so you got company. Don't worry about that.
We're both those 1963 babies.
Yeah. How'd you like when you found out working one day at the hospital that I'm the one everyone comes to? I'm the old guy now.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I went back to further my nursing degree in my 40s. Actually, I think I was in my late 40s, early 50s. And the thing that was funny is the first time that I went through, all of the doctors seemed so old, in the hallway talking there, and they were just so untouchable and da-da-da-da-da. And when I went in the next time, there are all these young little whippersnappers, standing in groups talking like they got big boy panties on. And I'm standing behind them thinking to myself, buddy, just order this. That's what they need. It was funny. I just wanted to go up and flick them on the back of the ear, because and they were all old enough to be my children. So yeah, just how times change.
Yeah, we used to have troopers show up on a scene, and it's like, boy, you were still waiting for your first date when I got into police work. Don't even start here.
Oh, I know, right? Well, I think we look great. You and I look great for our ages. So
I was going to say that about you. Absolutely.
No, yeah. Anyway, we do. We still got it. So that's a good thing, right?
We're still out here.
Yes.
So we were talking a little bit about your book, Omnipresent.
Yes.
And some of the stories you told me had, again, me looking over my shoulder, which never happens. What can you tell us about those books?
Okay, Omnipresent is going to be a 5-book series when it's finished. Those are 4 of my 6 books that I currently have out. I have a 7th one in the writing that will be the 5th book in the Omnipresent series, unless, of course, I keep going with the Omnipresent series. But the first book was about a house that I purchased as a single mother. Unbeknownst to me, it was so badly haunted that I never moved in. I turned around and I never moved in. The second book, again, I'm going to give you a little bit of a brief thing and then I'll go into a little bit more detail. The second book, because everybody wanted to know what happened next, is actually a picture of the house that I took to put an ad in the paper for sale by owner. I didn't even realize that I caught the demon's face in the kitchen window.
Is that the cover?
Yes. The cover. Yeah, the cover of Omnipresent, What Happened Next. If you zero in on that window that's to the left of the double entry door, you can see a face in it. I had no idea that it was there. And everybody's like, oh, well, it was probably the tree. Well, first of all, the tree wasn't at the angle that it would have been the tree, and it wouldn't be colored that aqua green color if it was a tree. So anyway, you know, everybody I hate that word pareidolia. It's like, look, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So anyway, so I wrote that book talking about how I ended up having to drive past the house when there was a backup on the interstate. What happened with that, how I got a hold of the people that sold me the house, their story of what happened, as well as some other story of experiences of people in the area that had floating babies and everything. Also, it has a section in there on mental illness. I did a rotation later in life as a nurse. As I mentioned, I went back to further my degree. And I had to do rotation for my psych class in the psychiatric wards, and I could see attachments on people with schizophrenia and attachments on people with addictions. So I talk about that as well. And in all of my books, there's always a self-help section in the back that kind of gives you an idea of things that you can do to protect yourself as you go along, and how to prepare yourself as we were talking before the show. You know, it's not about the age of the house, it's about the age of the ground that it's built on. And you know, you can have a brand new house that's haunted if it's built in the wrong place. The third book in the Omnipresent series is called Gnome Place Like Home, and that, oh wait, nope, I have to back up, I'm ahead of myself, is 111 Becadon Drive. This is a book about a townhouse that I moved into. Again, it was me moving in there. Found out from the maid, because she wouldn't finish cleaning the place before I moved in, that it was haunted. Started to explain some things because I had seen some things, and I saw a little girl at one point while I was putting my stuff in the closet. That didn't bother me. I could cross that over, but it was the other stuff that was nasty. And it ended up that there was a naked ghost, and it's the first time I've ever seen a naked ghost. I'll send you some pictures of him. He's actually Which I did. Yeah, he's got his hand.
First off, that's it, right? Before you put the markings on.
Yeah.
All right, so friends, check that out. You can see the discoloration.
You can see his legs and his hands over his Johnson. And this guy was a pervert. He was going from townhouse to townhouse, which it's hard to clear a house when you have connecting walls to other people's homes, because they just go into the other people's homes while you're clearing it and then come back when the show's over. You know what I'm saying? So I had to learn how to basically barricade the walls in a spiritual way that they could not come back in. And of course, then they were infesting everybody else's house. But this particular ghost was going from townhouse to townhouse, pulling down women's underwear, women's covers, and crawling in bed with them in the middle of the night. He was also groping men, so he's just an all-around pervert. And it's the first time I've ever seen a naked ghost, because usually ghosts present in clothes. You know, they do. I mean, and especially if somebody's passing and their loved ones show up, you know, nobody wants to see mom naked, you know, or their spirits come to take them to, you know, help them cross over, and they have no clothes on. It's like, look, you know, go get some clothes on first. You know, I don't want to see all of that. So, but anyway, so that's what that book was written about. The fourth book in the Omnipresent series is No Place Like Home. And it's about a piece of property that I inherited in Louisiana that I thought was haunted. And it kind of is, because there is a resident ghost there named Bryce, who's a jolly Cajun man that smiles all the time. He apparently had his, between the two oak trees in front, he had his house that kind of disintegrated there. But he loved the property so much that he's actually crossed over, but he comes back. So they can do that. It also is filled with Fae and Elementals. It's an enchanted piece of property. It's been verified. I've had a couple of groups out there that have experienced the activity. As a matter of fact, one of them follows me that I call Bob, even to events and things like that that people have seen. And they say, do you know that you have a little boy following you around? And I'm like, is it an ugly little boy? You know? So, and it's funny because he tells me that I'm ugly, but it's because, you know, they look different. He looks kind of like one of those bankers on Harry Potter, but his ears are up higher and they go backwards. And then he's got another set like deer ears in front. So it's like a double set of ears or whatever the ones that go back are, but that blocky head kind of thing. So, Brian, I don't know. Do you know Brian Bowden?
I've heard the name.
Okay. He has seen him. Jim and Melissa Rupert, their team, they came out, they actually saw him and verified some of the things out there as well as another group. So anyway, it's enchanted property. And I wrote that book to kind of bridge the gap between the elementals and Fae and Earth because of some of the changes that are happening. And I wanted to say this too, and Dan and I were talking about this before. For some reason, certain things are stigmatized in the sense that you either have to be UFO or paranormal or Fae and Elementals or cryptids, but really all of them are connected. So, you know, if you show up to an event with a paranormal shirt on and you're at a UFO thing, you kind of get dirty looks like, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? And really people segregate themselves, and it's kind of sad because really it all comes together. They all use the same portals, you know, all of them do. And they use the ley lines in the ground to travel and move and disappear and cloak themselves behind veils. But, you know, everybody, they're missing a lot by keeping themselves just in that one box when they could spread out and actually learn so much more about things that are literally boots on the ground with us. I mean, Bigfoot is boots on the ground with us. The elemental and Faes are all boots on the ground with us. Obviously, the cryptids are, you know, too. But the thing is a lot of times people can't see them because their frequency is so high, much higher than humans, so they look invisible. But I actually got to ask my Fae what Bigfoot is, because everybody's like, is he alien? Is he da-da-da-da? Is he cryptid? Is he da-da? He said that he's in a category by himself. He does travel intergalactically, and he is learned to manipulate the veils in order to, you know, even be standing next to you and you don't know it, and he's completely invisible. But that he is a very highly spiritual being. He does speak through telepathy also, but that he's not either. He's not, you know, he's in a category by himself.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting, you know, and the thing is too, is that traditional religion has seemed to demonetize a lot of these things that God has created. And the reality of it is that, and I'm just going to talk about the Fae and Elemental for another minute, and then I'll go into some of the creepier stuff. The truth of it is that the Fae and Elementals have emotions just like we do. They grieve loss. They love, they experience joy. They also can be stinkers. They can be nasty little shits. Oh, sorry. Nasty little turds. Sorry. And, you know, they can have sadness and anger too. But if they were demons, they would not have the ability to experience joy and love. Flat out. As a matter of fact, joy and love is a repellent to the dark side. I mean, if you're in a room with demons and you start laughing and dancing around and singing a song of joy, I mean, they shrivel up like raisins and they can't get out of the room fast enough, like there's a bad stench. So it really is repellent to them. So they can't be demons if they have the ability to experience joy and that things like that. And also, they believe in God. I believe in God. That's my word. Some people say source. Some people call it Allah or whatever. My word for my creator is God. And they also believe they call him their source, their higher source. They told me a story about Jesus, because they were there when Jesus got placed on the cross, and they said that he didn't get the nails through his hands, that they were placed through his wrists. And they also said that his eyes are blue. And I'm like, no, they're not, they're brown. And they're like, no, the eyes are blue. Well, lo and behold, there was a child that had a near-death experience, a little boy. There's a movie about him. And the father showed, because he talked about sitting on Jesus's lap, and the father showed pictures of, the traditional Jesus, like the one in those blue books in the doctor's offices, And, yeah, the brown hair with the clothes on and the staff and the whole 9 yards. And the father asked the little boy, is this what Jesus looks like? And he says, well, he kind of wears clothes like that, but no, he doesn't look like that. There was another little girl, near-death experience in somewhere like near Norway, where the blonde, blue-eyed countries. And she was allowed to paint a picture of what Jesus looks like. I have a copy of that, actually. And when the father found the completed painting that the girl had done and showed it to his son says, yep, that's him. And the little kid was like 4 years old. Hundreds of people that have had near-death experiences have now verified that portrait that she painted is exactly what he looks like, and he has blue eyes. Yes.
I've never heard that. That's interesting.
Yes, I will send you the picture of the portrait. Yeah, he has blue eyes. So anyway, I thought that was interesting that I had been told that, and I argued, I had been told that before I had seen that picture, and then that picture did validate it. So, there's just a lot of misunderstanding and about things that are different, and if you don't want to be around that kind of thing, maybe you shouldn't be going looking for it. You know what I'm saying? So make sure that you really want to see what you want to see, because you may get more than what you bargained for that way. But after that, the book that I'm currently writing is Omnipresent, You Don't Gnome Me, Gnome. And this is a book about the things that I've learned from the Fae and Elementals, about the crystalline cities in the water, the bioluminescent beaches that the night Fae live on, some of the devices that they use for light, like seeds that they rotate that light up inside of a larger seed. I mean, just really, really downloads of amazing things. And we made a pact, and they have definitely held up on their end of the bargain. So that is book number 5. But Omnipresent, the first one with the hands on the book, is the one that started it all. As I said, I was a single mother that purchased this house unbeknownst to me, that it was haunted. And I will say this, I had been looking for a house. That's the one, that's an actual event that occurred in the house while my son was sitting on the master bathroom toilet. And he saw those hands coming in just like through that white panel door. It's exact. The hands look the same and everything. And it turned out that there were 2 demons, real ones, and a young man that had hung himself in the house. The house was built in the 1970s, like around 1976. The next door neighbor was the one that told me about the original family, the son hanging himself in the stairwell. The parents were going through a divorce, and he had a little bit of a drug problem, and the mother came home and found him hanging in the stairwell. When I had been looking for a house for a whole year, I had been financially devastated by a divorce. I was living in a mobile home temporarily with my kids, with a snake-filled creek around the back of it, and it was a constant peeping toms in my window that would climb up in the trees and didn't think I could see their cigarette while they're trying to look in my window. So it was time to move. It was time to move. But I looked for a whole year because on my single mother income, I couldn't afford a lot. So
Sure.
most of the things that I could afford either needed a lot of updating, or they were like next to a stinky paper mill or something, you know, the very undesirable choices. And if I did find something, it was, if I wanted to step away for a day or two to think about it, by the time I came back, it was gone because those jewels were so few and far between. So when this one came on the market, my realtor called me and she said, my colleague just came back from taking pictures of a house. It's not even on the MLS yet. It will be by this afternoon. This house is in your price range and it's almost too good to be true. Well, that should have resonated right then and there, but it didn't. I was just thrilled. She started to tell me a little bit about it. So I got in my car and I drove over to the realtor's office and she took me to the house, and I'm looking around. You know, I even had her call the realtor, the listing agent, and I said, are you sure this price is right? Because I mean, I had been looking at houses for a long time, and this house could have easily have sold for $100,000 more than what these people were asking. And the people, it was move-in ready. They had already left. It was empty. So, you know, after I get confirmation that it is correct and all that kind of thing, I'm like, okay, so what's wrong with the neighborhood? You know, is there a big sinkhole at the end of the street or something? And it wasn't. It was in a really nice school district. It was low taxes. It was in walking distance of a hospital, which was excellent for me being a nurse, you know, that I could walk to work if I had to. And it was very desirable. It was on a half-acre Florida flat lot in North Carolina. I mean, imagine finding that in North Carolina. It had a large 3-acre grassed area behind it that was somebody else's, but still it was all mowed grass. So it gave me that privacy. And it was a beautiful, as you can see, as on the front of the one book, it had a beautiful double entry. It was a split level house, as you can see there on that one. That is the front of the actual house. But the thing is when we got there that first day to go in, she kept having trouble with the lock and the key. First, we couldn't get the key in. She's like, well, maybe, you know, after multiple tries, maybe the other realtor, you know, put the wrong keys in there or something. And then all of a sudden it would go in, but it wouldn't turn. And then she's like, oh, wow, might break this off. We need to bring some WD-40. And then all of a sudden it would turn. Well, she finally got it open, but then she was struggling to get the key back out. And this is a key piece because there was a hell dog that ran those stairs and manipulated that lock and that doorknob. No joke. It was a hell dog. And I saw him with my own eyeballs. So more than once, many, many times. And there were, like I said, there were 2 demons and the young man. When I walked into the foyer of that house, of course, there's descending stairs and stairs that go up. I decided that I wanted to go upstairs first and look around. And as I'm walking in my peripheral vision on my left side, I see in my peripheral vision this young man hanging in the stairwell. And I'm like, ugh, you know, what is that? You know, why would I even be thinking about something like that? And I kind of let the thought go. When I got to the top of the stairs, I could feel, and at the time I didn't know that it was actually a portal, because I could feel the stringy feeling of like cobwebs blowing on my face. And I felt like I was being charged by an angry bull. I mean, it was so strong that I had to step back on the stairs and grab a hold of the banister so that I wouldn't fall backwards. I'm looking into this living room and it's perfect. I'm envisioning my kids eating popcorn, where I put the Christmas tree between the 2 windows. You know, and a lot of this stuff, I ignored it. Anyway, I liked the house. It was a beautiful house. And so I wanted to bring my kids back later that afternoon. And I'm mentioning this because when I brought my daughter back, see, my son was about 8 years old, 8, 9 years old, and my daughter was like 15. And when I brought them to the house, they were excited. They're like, you know, how much longer till we get there, Mom? And they were running down the hallway, picking out their bedrooms. And there was this one smaller bedroom that nobody wanted. So then they asked if they could go downstairs. And I'm standing in the kitchen with the realtor. We're getting ready to make an offer because I knew that I had to. And plus we had called and somebody had already made an offer. So I knew I had to, you know, to do something. So I said a little prayer before I made my offer. And just as we're getting ready to do that, my daughter and son come back up from downstairs. And my daughter says, Mommy, I don't want to live in this house. And I'm like, what? And she repeats it. She says, there's something about this house that I don't like, and I don't want to live here. And of course, I'm thinking, she's a teenager. We're moving 25 minutes from her school. She's going to worry about not being able to still have the same friends that she had and that sort of thing. So I kind of got smart with her, and I said, and I'm embarrassed too, because here's this realtor that's been dragging me around for a year. You know, in this house, it's like, how could you not like this house? We could fit where we're living right now 4 times in this house if you stack it on top of it, you know, with the 2-story. So I said, well, this isn't a decision for you to make, and I should have listened. The thing about it is on our closing day, the people were very, very late to the closing. I found out why in the second book. And the woman kept staring at her feet. And I kept doing one of these, trying to get her attention and say, listen, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'll take good care of your beautiful home. You know, and it was on a dead end street too, a trick or treat neighborhood, which I call, so the houses are close enough, you know, just perfect. So she's like, and I said, and I'm going to be taking out that off-white carpet and cream colored carpet and putting in wooden floors because that won't go well with kids. And she says, well, that's what we wanted to do. They literally only made $2,000 on the house after everything was paid. I mean, I even took the risk of asking to have everything fixed, including changing light bulbs in the attic. They did it all. They didn't dispute any of it because they didn't want me to back out, you know? So the first night that we went there, I had gotten the keys. And of course, now I'm having trouble with the lock. I brought dinner for the kids and I'm cooking in the kitchen. And all of a sudden my daughter comes into the kitchen and she says, what did you want? I said, I didn't call you. She said, yes, you did. She said, you called me twice after the first time I told you that I was coming. And then you called me again. What did you want? And I said, no, I swear on my life I didn't call you. And she says, well, I swear on my life you did. And of course my son comes in, he's peering underneath her arm and she says, Mommy, I heard you too. So these things have an intelligence about them. They learned very, very quickly that I was the mommy lady. They were able to mimic my voice. They knew what my children's names were because they were calling my daughter, you know, Brittany. And of course, I passed it off as, well, you know, it is dinner time and Brittany's a popular name. So maybe there's a parent calling her kid to come home and eat that's named Brittany, and you'll meet the new Brittany and make friends. And of course, that satisfied that. But it turned out that it was very badly haunted to the point that people were getting clogged to the point of bleeding. It was and I'm going to speed forward a little bit. When I finally had enough, I mean, I had a Episcopalian priest over there. I had literally like multiple denominations of religion over there trying to bless the house. And the places that I called with paranormal just wanted to come in and take pictures and rile up the ghosts and leave me with them already. You know, I didn't want that. I wanted them to get out because, of course, as a single mother, I wanted to move in. I had purchased it in March and I was going to commute with my kids because I wanted to move in the summer where they could finish in the classes that they were in and then start new in the new school year. So I had renovations being done and I couldn't keep workers in there. I had three of them that left. The third one was a friend of mine's cousin. And the final one stayed because he was stoned all the time and had demons on his back anyway, which I didn't care because as long as I wasn't taking my kids to the house at that point in time. And but I got to find out what was happening in the house from my friend's cousin. And if you'd like,
okay, Lynn, can we hold that for just a second? I got to brush off for a commercial, and then we want to hear what's going on in the house. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, stand by. Anybody else getting spooked yet? Because this is the kind of thing, and this is what gets me about demonic infestations is that it's all seems so normal. Well, you know, we all have heard things like that. We've all, I don't know, had problems keeping workers in here. I have a hard time just getting anyone to come up here. for plumbing or electric. So, and that's not anything haunted, just demonics can make it look normal, even though you're living through hell. And that's why I tell people you don't want to get involved in this stuff. Seriously, I don't want to get involved in this stuff. But what I do want to get involved in is this right here. If you'll watch this, I'll be right back.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com.
Friends, there's so much going on here at the Unex Network. Just real briefly, Unexplained Network. Sorry. We changed the name back to the original recently. So 4 years of calling it Unex. It's the Unexplained Network. But there's so much going on. I think I mentioned last week, my producer is now an executive producer, and I've got a new producer because there's so many new shows on the Unex Network that they needed more help. So we got plenty of this. Michelle Roos has her ghost stuff from Iowa, and there's UFO stuff. There is cryptids, anything in the supernatural. Margie Kay has got a show on every Friday night with different things. Sometimes it's ghosts, sometimes it's witchcraft, sometimes it's UFOs. She's got a little bit of everything going on, just like we do here. There is shows that are just dedicated to this stuff. And if you join up, which you go to the unexnetwork.com, the Unexplained Network, and drop down on the front page, there's a way to join up. You get so much out of this. You get a blog that comes out, sometimes a couple, 3 times a week. And when the Tic Tac UFOs came out and the winged humanoids were seen, man, we were right on top of that. We were keeping the news going, keeping everybody informed, opinions, thoughts. All of that was on the blog. There we have a weekly newsletter, and that talks about the show. Sometimes it talks about other things going on. That I think we had a big article on that Air Force colonel that just disappeared about a month ago, I think it is now. A lot of stuff like that. And you get our monthly magazine sent to you by email. You can order a paper copy, but you get the magazine. It comes with it. And there, like the one on the left, the dark one, I've got 2 articles in that I wrote, one on the haunted battleship North Carolina and one on legends of Halloween. And the legends of Halloween I wrote about are not ghosts and such. This is, back when I was a kid, they would tell us every Halloween that there was cults looking to kidnap blonde-haired, blue-eyed children. There was crazy people who was putting narcotics into the candy. They was putting razor blades into the apples. There were all kinds of legends, and every one of those legends and more had just a kernel of truth in them. So that was that article. This one just recently come out on dolls, haunted dolls. I wrote that article. There's some really good writers, better than me, but I tend to put one in about every couple, 3 months. The Last Call at the Devil's Diner, that was a Route 66 restaurant that had been there since the 50s. And it was very, very haunted. I was on the first investigation, the third investigation, and then did a bunch more afterwards. And recently, as crazy haunted as it was, but they couldn't stop the weather, and a tornado struck it a year ago in March and destroyed it. So there will be no more of that one. But there's so much going on the Unex Network, guys, and you get so much to join up. Why you're not, I don't know. You can get more about what each show is, what shows are coming out, and the people who do them. So you need to get into there. You need to look at that. Now let's get back to Lynn, because she was just about to start talking about the bad parts of this.
Yeah, a little bit of a spoiler alert. The third person was a friend of mine's cousin, and I worked with her. So he came out to the house, and I had to leave that day. That day was the day that I actually saw the young man that hung himself in the stairwell walking up the stairs. And I mean, he looked as solid as you do, and out of my peripheral vision. And then when I turned, there was nothing there. But anyway, I ended up leaving to go pick up my daughter, and I get a call from the guy in the house, and he says, I've got to leave. I've got to leave right now. There's something about this house. And the line dropped. I got a hold of him about an hour later, and I said, is everything okay? And he says, oh, yeah, it was nothing, but I'd rather be there when you're there. And I'm like, well, look, I'm working this weekend. I won't be back until next week. And I've got furniture coming, and I really, really need to have the flooring done. Nevertheless, he didn't finish it. But it turned out, I asked my friend at work, I said, listen, can you ask your cousin what happened? Why he didn't come back? And if it was something paranormal related.
Mm-hmm.
So she asked him, 4th of July, he'd come over to her house, and he was drinking, so he was feeling a little talkative. And he told her, he said, I am so sorry that I did not finish that house for Lynn. She's such a nice lady. But that house is words that I can't say on this show, starting with an F up, that he said, I couldn't go back. And she asked him, well, what happened? So he was telling her that he was sitting on a wheelie chair, like a garden seat, because of his knees that was low to the ground. He had a trowel. He had his block and his mallet, because it was tongue and groove flooring that he was putting in with adhesive. So he said that he put a piece in, then he went to reach for the mallet, and everything was gone. He put the trowel down, everything was gone. So he thought maybe that he had rolled over them. So he moved over, and of course nothing was there. And he looks over off to the side, probably a good 7 feet away. And there were his tools lined up right in front of the door. And he's like, okay, maybe Lynn came back and she moved them and she's playing a joke. So he got up, he picked up the items, he looked out the door, he called for me. Of course, I didn't answer, and it freaked him out, so he turns on the radio, he turns on the light, and he sits back down to get started. And lo and behold, as soon as he starts, he can hear, he can hear like the dragging behind him of the tools, watching them line up, and his radio turned itself off, and then the light turned itself off. And his radio was battery operated, so it wasn't hooked into the electric, but they each turned themselves off. And he said he couldn't get out of there fast enough. So those are the sorts of things. And at least I got to know what was happening, because I couldn't understand why the first two guys didn't stay. And then, of course, the fourth one was that. And I did end up selling it. And people are like, how could you sell that? Didn't you tell the people? I tried to tell the people. I had something happen. We were signing papers at the house, and we were all coming down the stairs, and the daughter exited the double entry doors first, and then I was behind her, and all of a sudden I hear the wife say to the husband, why did you push me? He said, I didn't push you. She says, yes, you did. And he says, no, I'm 3 steps back. I can't even, touch you. And she said, well, I don't know what happened then. And of course, I knew what happened then. And out of good conscience, I had to say something. So when they came out, I said to them, I said, do you believe in ghosts? And they immediately cut me off. They said, nope, we're Baptists. We don't believe in that sort of thing. We don't discuss that sort of thing, and we're protected. And I said, okay. I would have told them the truth. Lo and behold, they ended up selling the house 6 months later. Yeah. So, and moving out. Then it goes into the book of what happened next. And there's a lot more that happened in Omnipresent. Goes into the book of what happens next, which then talks about me following up and finding the family that sold me the house, and finding out that house almost ruined their marriage, because she was working midnights at Walmart to be home with the kids to sleep. Oh no, it was the other way around. He was working midnight somewhere And then he would sleep during the day while the kids were gone to school. And then she would work during the daytime so that they could both be home together in the evening time, before he would go back into work.
Mm-hmm.
And things that were happening is like they'd feel somebody crawling into bed next to them, or the door would open to the master bedroom, or they'd hear each other's voices. They kept getting into arguments because the water would be left trickling. And of course, she would be like, well, I didn't do it, and the kids would be gone to grandma's house and it would still be happening.
Yeah.
So they literally almost got divorced. They ended up, when they moved out originally, I was told by the realtor that the family had to move out of state because of their work, and that they were anxious sellers because they had already purchased a home and didn't want to have to pay 2 mortgages. Well, I found out at the closing and with these people that instead they actually were still at the same job and had moved to her mother's house to get away. And the thing was too, is the children, they had 2 small children. And you know how like in kindergarten, they have you draw a picture of your house, and the kids always draw the flower next to the house that's bigger than the house, and they wanted a picture of their family. So on one side of the picture, there were the little stick people of mom, dad, and the brother and the little girl. And on the other side were these 3 dark figures. And when the children were asked who the figures were, the little girl would say, those are the monsters that live downstairs in my house. So, and she was showing up with weird bruises and claw marks because they can leave bite marks. They can leave claw marks. They can leave bruises that are just unexplainable. They can pull your hair. They can do those sorts of things. And so, needless to say, they had moved, and she apologized. She said, I am so sorry. She said, we were late to your closing because when I found out that you were a woman alone with children, I didn't want to sell the house to you. But it was, everything went through, and I ended up selling it to the people that didn't want to hear about it. I couldn't bring myself to sell it to anybody that had children, and this was a retired couple. But there was an incident with flies covering the windows. I mean,
oh, wow.
I'll tell you that. When I had made arrangements, and my mother was helping me get the house cleaned up and ready to sell by owner. When we were in the house, a person called about the ad that I had in the paper, said that she had lived in the neighborhood as a child, wanted to had a similar house to that because there were like cookie cuts of the houses like that.
Okay, can you hear me? Lynn.
You can come and look at it. And so anyway, my mom and I came the next day when they were supposed to be there, and I made the arrangements in the house where those things heard me. The spirits in the house heard me. So when my mom and I come the next day, we come an hour early because we were going to put like towels for stage playing and stuff like that. And as we're walking up that walkway to the double entry doors, my mom looks up at the windows and she said, did you tint the windows? I'm like, no, why? And I looked up and you couldn't see the vertical blinds or anything. And then I looked down to the lower level and there were flies all over the downstairs windows. And then when I looked back up at the windows, I realized that they were so covered in flies that it almost looked like a moving wave. That's how thick they were in there. And I said, oh my God, those are flies. My mom and I, when we went in, of course, we said a prayer and we went ahead to go in there. We were expecting to be swarmed by those flies, but really the flies were plastered all over the windows trying to get out themselves. And there was even an area on a window that was kind of like a bay window that had been painted shut from the outside, and I didn't realize it. The screens were in mint condition. There were no gaps, holes, cuts, tears, nothing. And there were flies stuck between that screen and the glass, the panes to the outside. And I literally had to take the screens off those windows and with a towel usher the flies into the room so that we could shoo them out the front window. And they had been there so long that there was brown speckled excrement all over the windowsills that we had to clean.
Wow.
Lo and behold, and I'm like, Mom, what are we going to do? I mean, these people are going to be pulling up any minute. We still have flies all over downstairs to get out at the lower levels in the garage. And fortunately, the woman had called, unbeknownst to me, and canceled that they needed to reschedule for the next day.
Okay.
When they were late, I finally checked my phone and found that out. So when I got into the car and was leaving the house that day, I spoke to them on the phone and had mentioned, that they could come the next day. So the next day, my mom and I got there 2 hours early, and it was perfect. No flies, no nothing, nothing. And there was nothing in the house. There was no garbage, no toilet, nothing that would have drawn those flies in there. And they were full-grown flies. There were no hatchlings, nothing in there. So anyway, the people come, and again, their children, they had 3 children. 2 of their children were with them. The older one was at a friend's house. The kids are running down the hallway, just like mine did, picking out their bedrooms. And of course, nobody wanted the small room. So the kids come up and they ask if they can go downstairs and look downstairs. And I'm like, well, yeah, go ahead. Lo and behold, the boy and the girl were back up in a few minutes, and the little girl's eyes were as big as a deer in headlights. And she says, Jimmy can have the creepy room downstairs. I'll take the little room in the hallway. So they saw those things, or at least they felt them. They knew that there was something not good down there, that it was the creepy room. And in that moment, I realized as a mother, I couldn't sell the house to somebody with children. So, and that's how that happened. So no, I didn't dump a creepy house on somebody and they didn't know. They did know. But so going forward, there's also a section in what happened next talking about mental illness, about attachments, about addiction and attachments, and how all of that works and happens. I was in a mental facility as a nurse. I was furthering my degree, and I think we've got like 5 minutes left. So I won't be able to get into the story other than I came across a patient that had claw marks all over her and was hearing 25 different voices. Come to find out that she was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I could see the attachments on her. So she actually did have attachments on her, and the claw marks that she had all over her were coming out of her ear and her nose, and in angles that there's no way she could have done them to herself, but they were claiming that it was self-inflicted. So I actually helped pull some of the attachments off of her, and ran into her a year later, and she was actually in her finishing either her semester or her first year in dental hygiene school. She told, because I told her when I went to her room, I said, listen, if you repeat what I have to tell you, they're going to think that you're crazier, and they're going to keep you here longer. I said, but I believe that you are hearing 25 different voices because you have attachments on your back. When I pulled them off, they kind of scattered on the floor like rolling potatoes everywhere, and I was trying to stomp them into the ground. And I told her, I said, listen, this is a temporary fix. Some have rolled over by your bed. I said, but when you get out of here, you need to find someone that can take these things off of you. Yeah. This is why you're hearing voices. And she did. And it turned her life around. So it was a wonderful thing to get to know that.
There's so much in these books that you've written about that.
And I didn't even get to start about Weenie Man, the naked ghost that was, harassing women in the Becca Drive book. That's a whole nother story in itself. There is a little bit of a blurb about that situation in the what happened next book, but it's elaborated on in more of a bigger story in the second.
Very briefly, what is this photo of?
Oh, that is an elemental that's in my yard in Louisiana.
Okay, and there was another one. Yeah, that's the one I was looking for.
Okay, that is not my picture, but I do have those in my yard. I had actually taken a picture that looks similar to that, although one's a little bit more forward in mine. And when I was looking through pictures trying to find what they were to compare mine to, I found that picture, and then I accidentally erased mine. So that one is someone else's picture, but I do have those in my yard at the Louisiana house. And that
has got 2 legs.
Yes.
A body similar to like a bug. And is that ears coming out the top?
Yes. Yeah, like rabbit ears. And the thing is everybody puts their ears low, but their ears actually come out about here regardless if they're pointed back or whatever.
And would you say this is a fairy or
no,
a goblin?
It's an elemental. It's an elemental. It's one of the ones that tend the grass and the plants and the things that are above the soil.
Okay. And this?
That is an elegant queen. She is a queen. She comes in with the blue ones. The two blue ones that you saw, those are called the night fae or blue flares. When she comes in, most of them are under 3 feet tall. Some of those, like the blue ones, were under 2 feet tall. So they're tiny. She actually, with her antlers, stands about as tall as me. I'm like 5'8" now that I'm shrinking. But she does, when she lays down, she looks like an elegant deer. When she stands up, which she stands up most of the time, she doesn't walk on all fours. She looks like a walking log with a smaller head and then the branches that come from her head. And she comes in with the blue ones to kind of watch over them. But she is the queen, and she is very, very stately and lovely.
Okay, so, this one?
That is an alien. That was an orb, a real one in the dark. You know, you see those turquoise looking things, and everybody's like, no, it's a reflection from the light. And well, no, there was no light. It was pitch black out there. And I have a video of it flitzing and coming down and landing on the ground. And then I zeroed in on it that you can actually see the head of it. You can see whatever it was starting to enlarge and materialize out of the orb. And that's what it is. And in the top part, you can see where there's the darker hair. You can see the ears. You can see the face. So that's like an alien.
Okay. One more thing I want to ask you real quick for the folks that are watching this, and that's going back here. Your book, Colors of Heaven, which I hope you'll come back and we'll talk about that specifically. Okay. That is things you've done with people who are on the verge of dying, right?
Yes, that are absolutely, death should be celebrated, not grieved. We don't die, people. Our avatars get left behind, but our souls are always perfect, intact. And even if you're sick or you have Alzheimer's, your soul is still perfect and intact. It's just your body that gives way around it. So, and also, when people pass away, so many times people worry that they weren't there for their mother when she passed. But I can tell you what, if there is not a physical bodied person in the room, nobody ever dies alone. Their loved ones from the other side come in full force to collect them and help them transition over so peacefully and easily. So you never have to feel guilty that they died alone, because they didn't.
I had a friend who was attending her grandmother's passing, and they knew it was going to happen. And just because she was trying to find something to do, she actually looked at a ghost app on her phone, which showed another dot coming in, the two dots joining, and then the two dots leaving together. And that's kind of what you're talking about, right?
Yes, and they sometimes leave in different ways. I mean, like you said, this is a whole show in itself. But like in my mother's case, sometimes they leave early before the body finishes breathing. And the body will just lay there and finish what it needs to do to shut down. Sometimes they stay in until the last minute. My mother stayed until the last minute because she was still, even though she could no longer open her eyes or verbalize, because the swallowing reflex is the first thing to go, so it makes it difficult to talk also. But she was laying there with her eyes shut and her mouth open. When people would come into the room, she would move her eyes up and down and with her eyes, and it was appropriate. So she was responding to them. When the spirits started to come into the room and her mother, who is deceased, entered the room, she came over to my mother's bedside and was stroking the inside of her arm and leaning forward and speaking in my mother's ear. Now, when they start to transition, the filters start to efface. So they're able to hear the telepathy from the other side as well as the physical communication in the room. And so each time my grandmother would whisper and then pull away, my mother would respond with the eyebrows and the mouth. My mother actually, when she left her body, I noticed that there was a whole group of those loved ones gathered around her. It looked like a peony flower. And as they started to open, her spirit was standing in the middle, like to stabilize her spirit feet, so to speak. And the thing is there were colors over there that we don't have here. You would need multiple color wheels to even imagine. the light, because I got to see in there. I got to see all of the people. I got to see people that I knew that were deceased standing there, and other people that I didn't know. But when my mom came out of her body, she knew who they were. They were friends of hers from high school and stuff like that. And it was just so beautiful in that moment, and to have them walk and leave. And people, I'm here to tell you, there were angels, but there were also beings over there on the other side that were walking with the angels, that were these gorgeous white-haired beings, very, very tall. And their vibration was the same as the angels, but they appeared to be from somewhere else. And the reason why I'm saying this is because it would be ignorant to believe, with all of the solar systems that are in the world and stars around the solar systems around the stars, I'm not in the world, but in the sky, that there aren't other planets with life on them besides ours. And when those beings finish out their tour on this earth, they have to have some place to go to. I mean, energy can't be created or destroyed if you want to take it from a scientific level. So your soul doesn't die, or it can't be destroyed. It just changes form. And it's the same for them too. But they were beautiful. So when people are like, oh, well, it's an alien thing versus an angel thing, it's all that, it's all intertwined, just like this. All of the realms of the entities that travel through the portals and things, it's all connected. All of it is connected. So everybody's right.
There is so much more I want to talk to you about on that topic, but we are absolutely out of time. Lynn Monet, your radio show, your show is on the groundzeroplus.com. That's there's a lot of shows on there, I'm sure. How do they find yours?
What they do is I post it on my webpage, my website, my Instagram. What you do is you go to the site at the time that is designated. When you come onto the screen, you don't have to scroll, but you just look down to the bottom and there's a ribbon and it will say the Lynn Monet Show. If you click on it while it's playing, you can listen in for free. You can listen in for free Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then if you want to watch it after that, it goes into the archives where you are required to purchase a subscription in order to see it. So you can see it for free if you catch it while it's playing. And
you said your show is also on radio stations, yeah?
Oh yes, it's on 600. It's in 600 radio stations throughout the United States and Canada. There's approximately 200,000 viewers every day. It's a Clyde Lewis channel. He was a journalist, and it's been around for like 25 years. He established it, and it's very popular.
All right, so the Clyde Lewis channel, that's easy to find.
Yes,
he's everywhere.
Yes,
all right. Well, thank you so much for being on. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I hope I can get you back on here again soon. We'll talk more about life after death and what happens at death. Because, like I said, I got a lot of questions I want to talk to you about.
And I've got a lot of answers.
All right, hang loose here. I'll be right back. I'm going to say goodbye to the folks, and then I want to chat with you a little more, okay?
Okay, yes.
All right, stand by. There you go. All right, that was fun. I mean, we had a lot of good discussion there. I had a lot of good discussion with her even before the show, so that was great, and I am running out of time. So, my friends, remember to join up with the UNX Network. There's a lot to do here. Check out Lynn's stuff on the groundzeroplus.com and look for her show. I'm sure it'll be interesting. And I guess the most important thing, because, the summer's coming and all that good stuff. The thing I always say, and you guys know what I'm about to say, y'all stay spooked. Good night.